World Organization. And as I mentioned in my report, Lindsey, Daryl, really have given us the greatest amount of success that we've had since I've been here. Every day is only getting better. And thank you all again for attending. And as I mentioned again in my report, I'm very familiar with the city. If you have any questions or any suggestions that you want, you know I'm always available to you. Thank you very much.
Linda Torres, I'm the attorney for the IBF. I know some of you out there. The bulk of the past year was spent working on defending a lawsuit by the former ratings chairman. The case was finally resolved and was dismissed by the court on March 2nd. But like I said, we were doing depositions and we actually had to do trial preparation because we had an early trial date. So that's what most of the time was spent on last year. I did outline in my report a few of the other things. I am not actually like general counsel, in-house counsel for the IBF. I work on things when I'm requested to work on them. So sometimes frequently, sometimes not so frequently. We're sort of resting right now after that lawsuit, which took a lot out of all of us. We are renewing our trademark for the we did make some changes to the USBA belt in the interim, so now we're hoping we can amend our trademark. Other than that, I've listed some of the miscellaneous things that I've worked on. If anyone's got any questions, I'm around.
That accepted me almost 20 years ago, even though eventually I belong to some other organizations also, but the idea has been my dad. Many of the people that are here at heart. And one of the best things that I've experienced this past year is the flexibility that they have shown. Annabelle be the ratings chairman because he can be stubborn, but then he can be flexible too. And that's the type of person that I want to work with. Closed mind, no compromise person. That's the type of people that we have here, great people that are very flexible. Lindsey did an outstanding job in trying to provide assignments for officials. I know it's been difficult, have not received what they thought they should have received. But keep in mind, we're working on it. The one part that Daryl spoke about, that you need to be 3 years consecutive license in the province or whatever.
And my goal is every year is to try to increase the activity. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that in 2014. In 2013, we had a total of 152 fights. 152. In 2014, we only had 148. So we lost 4. And I think that was due largely in part to the World Cup soccer tournament. For maybe a month and a half, a lot of countries, they weren't us back. But the good news is we've seen an increase in activity in South Korea, Japan, and China. And we actually did our first fight last year in Dubai and in Monte Carlo. London, England, last May 31st, probably the largest fight we've ever had. 80,000 people, and when we second fight. In addition to the 148 that we did, there was another 52 that got canceled. I want to thank all of our regional guys for their help.
Ideas of the leaders of the boxing community. We have a great bunch of officers here. Be part of it. Thank you.
Before I want to say hello to a lady. She's a A few minutes ago, she's our IBF 118-pound female world champion, Carolina. Levantate. So, gracias por haber venido. Claudio, igual. Muchas gracias. Last year I proposed some changes in the ratings criteria, and I'd like to thank the board for approving those changes. The most significant changes were the ones about the minimum amount of fights and the amateur background. And 7th this year in Macau, we have 3 times amateur world champion, 2 times Olympic gold medalist, and the most popular Chinese fighter ever, Su Shimin, today. I'm not Ron Roy. Daryl and I we were there for the fight. Shimin, but he proved that a fighter with a small amount of fights, with a great amateur background, he belonged in a ring with a world champion. 4 points, it wasn't, a walk. And the most important part is we continue our trip to Beijing, and we find out in Beijing that that fight was watched by 150 million people. So I say that was the beginning of the IBF in China. We have a representative of IBF China that will give you more detail, but think about that, 150 million people watching an IBF fight. And not in China, I imagine 2 or 3 people watching in different countries. We also changed the criteria for the female ratings. There are going to be some changes on the rules. So as we're trying to increase females, it's very, very hard to rate females. Not only the pool is not big enough, but women change 4 or 5 divisions. They can go from competitive. So it's a little harder to make ratings, but I believe that with the changes that we have in criteria and rating, it's going to be working okay. Also called world champions that take fighters that could be rated out of the ratings. If you take the 17 divisions that we have, multiplied by 4, that are the 4 divisions. So today there should be 68 so-called world champions. Well, if you titles, today we have 95 world champions. So it's that cut in the amount of fighters. There are even titles that are not world champions, but they are set as champions. And these people they can fight for a title, not available to fight for a title. This year we have an interim champion. That's something very rare. The champion was hurt, and according to the rules, we give him the time that he's supposed to have. He couldn't come back, so we have an interim champion, and now we hope that they start negotiations to fight between each other. We don't let our interim champion to defend the title and the champion to defend the title. So we hope that we have a unified or unique champion in the Cruiserweight division. And finally, I'd like to thank Daryl, Lindsey, the board, and the members of the ratings committee for helping me and for making, once again, to have the best ratings that we have. Thank you very much.
And the reason I bring that point up is because in the 1993 IBF Judges Manual is however, there's many meetings and many other rulings by other commissions felt that the fighter that scores the knockdown should win by 10-9. The third point is how would you score around if there's 3 knockdowns? There are some domiciles will not go below a 10-7. That isn't true. So we need to make sure everybody's on the same page. Number 4, under what conditions would you score, fighter scored a knockdown. What is your criteria to see who won the round? And number 5, under what condition would you score a 10-10 round?
Routine stuff, but we sometimes make some critical decisions for the organization. For example, in 2010, the board decided with Daryl. And at the time we made that decision, Daryl and Lindsey had been fired as employees of the organization and been removed from the board. So they had no say in that decision. We had to make that without them. And I think we made the right decision. Another decision we had to make was to support Daryl's decision to replace the Ravens chairman a few years ago. Unfortunately, we picked the wrong person. It was clear we picked the wrong person, and the job wasn't being done properly. So we made a decision to replace him, and that just got resolved this year. We were tied up in litigation, and the board had to make a decision as to how we're going to resolve this litigation. We had to agree to the terms of that and get it done through our attorney, which we did. Some of the other things are just approaches to boxing and boxing titles. For example, Aníbal talked about whether Joe Shiming should be allowed to fight for a title. They only had 6 professional fights at the time, and our rules did not allow for that. But we had to look into the history of 2 gold medals, how much does that weigh in, and the interest in China. But Glen talks a lot about marketing and branding and penetrating markets. We had a huge opportunity to expand our market in China if we allow this fight to go forward. Heavily debated in the board. There's strong opinions on both sides, and some of the people didn't want to do it, some of them did, and we finally decided to go forward and do it. And I think it turned out to be the right decision. We didn't win the fight, but we gave him an opportunity, and at least he was competitive in the fight. So he'll be back, and I think he'll end up being a title holder eventually. So those are some of the things we do, and it's really nice now to the trains staying on the track, it's running properly, we're in good shape, and so a lot of the mundane things that you folks don't see, all you care about is that we stay fiscal for you, and you get your assignments and you're treated fairly when you go on your trips. That's the routine business that we're concentrating on now because we're in good shape now, we're very stable, and that's our goal as a board of directors, just to keep it there.
Frozen check, minus 41, and Belgium, Ireland, and Poland, and the new entry in Estonia. I want to remark that it's possible to do this great activity in Europe thanks to our president, Daryl Peoples, championship champion, who receives sometimes the request for a very medium low level, but we try to do our best. And thanks to the effort that our staff do for send to us, to ship to us the material, in 2-3 days we solved a lot of our problems. Thanks to Janet, thanks to Tracy especially, and Rudy Mendes. Thanks, all of you.
Glad to be here one more year. Hope y'all don't vote me out of office. We had okay, I'll go. The way I conduct a supervisor is this almost like they dealt with here. Key is to get you people there and make sure that you don't get killed, beat, or wrong, get you paid, and get all of us paid, and get us back. And so far, we've made it every time. And some of us have had a little scary times, but we have managed to prevail. So we've done well. All right, now we'll go to the finance. Finance is good. We made money.
which is always a good thing. But here about the 2002. All right, so we'll go into that a little bit. We found out in 2010 that our money, we had a money problem, bad money problem. We found out that the president had fired Daryl and had fired my friend Lindsey. So we, as a board, called a special meeting, and we, in turn, terminated the president. And then we hired Daryl to be our CEO and president of the corporation. In turn, we hired Lindsey. And so far, we're doing all right. In 2009, the IBF lost $336,000. In 2010, the IBF lost $209,000. In 2011, the IBF lost $40,466. In 2012, the IBF lost $161,157. Reason they had lost so much between the time Daryl retired until we got things on track is because we had obligations that had been bestowed upon us by the former president. So we come along in 2013, we could clear $380,000. In 2014, we cleared $256,000. Then the Internal Revenue. Here they come. You know, when you start making a little money and you have all these problems, here comes the Internal Revenue Service. So they had a full-blown audit on the IBM. Full audit. No change. No change at all. Internal Revenue said our return is good and this year is looking good. We have a little problem with litigation, so we're going to have a little expense in, but I think at the end of the year, we should still turn a profit. So I think overall, we're doing pretty good, considering where we came from. Thank you kindly.
Hopefully we won't be hearing from the IRS for quite some time. Before I turn this over to the international representatives, I have to mention the office staff. David touched on these guys work incredibly hard every year to make sure that you guys have a good time at the conventions. They support us on the board for everything that we need. Is Jeanette still there? Convention hire our point person. She does a great job. So I would ask all of you to give Jeanette a kind hello, a word of thanks, and as well as the staff and the convention committee. They're here for you, possibly be.
IBF has become more and more popular brand in China, and the system has been set up in China. Our goal is to be the #1 in China. Go up to the peak. So then, following with this, we just made some campaign of promotion in China, and now we have our IBF system for China. Our president and me and our vice directors in China to look after the routine works. And there will be over 10,000 Chinese professional boxing gyms and 500,000 boxers in the coming 5 years. This is our research. The 2016 IBF Annual Convention in China will be helpful both for the development of Chinese boxing and IBF. The last but not least, many of our members are living in North America and Europe, so it would be a long journey from here to to Canada. So and we are going to negotiate with the airlines to get best rate for international flights for our members. Ready to even give.
And I was on the board for 4 years. I was appointed, and I was every convention. I would let everybody know who did all the judges, referees, and you say Joe Cooper did 5 fights. You can look on there and say Joe Cooper didn't do anything. So if I'm elected, I'll keep that up. If I'm elected, I would like to work with the board to start this back up. As a director, the last one we had was 1999. I'd like to work with the board to try to start this back up. Times a year, and they'll tell you a little bit of what's going on in the IBF. I'd like to thank you, and I appreciate it if y'all vote.
In 1967, I was a college freshman in New York City, and I went to the YMCA to join the boxing program. I made my professional debut in Madison Square Garden with the first round knockout. Over 10 years, I had 38 fights in 4 countries. I was number 9 heavyweight boxer in the world, number 6 in the 1970s. I proudly served in the United States Army and the New Jersey National Guard as a combat engineer. Early 1980s, I started refereeing and judging those days in Madison Square Garden and Atlantic City. On the business side, I've been in the financial services. I became a certified financial planner 32 years ago. I also believe in giving back. I've been on the board of Spectrum for Living, which is a group that provides living space for handicapped adults. My daughter Randy, who's been in many conferences, has been a member there for 20 years. I'm also on the board of the AAIB, the American Association for the Improvement of Boxing, started by Rocky Marciano. What's the term? The fire rod for this, because that's what you had to do in the old days. The referees didn't enforce the rules. So in May of that year, I went to England to fight Billy. The stuff was all over the paper.